This meeting, all other meetings, as council open to the public, proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, so the citizenry may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting. Start the meeting out with we'll call the meeting to order with a roll call.
Nadowski?
Here.
Appleby?
Here.
We are one short on this committee.
All right, next, make a motion to approve the minutes from October 10th, 2016.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Citizen appearances, we have none. Next, we have our 2015 audit review with Joy. Welcome, Joy.
Yes. So the sound, we're working on it, but we could move the microphone back if you want. It might be a little bit louder. But
I don't know, you tell me if this is too loud.
I think we should.
No, it's good.
Okay.
We're good.
My name is Joy Palmer. I was the engagement director overseeing fieldwork for the city's audit this spring. There are two handouts I provided. The first one I'd like to go over is the actual spreadsheet,
Okay.
which summarizes two areas of the financials, the governmental funds, and then the second page covers the proprietary funds. So the first page shows the summary of the governmental fund activity for 2015 by fund. So you'll see the general fund, special revenue funds, debt service funds, and the capital project funds. The one that is watched most closely is the general fund. You'll see total revenues of 1.5 million with expenditures of 1.3 million. There were transfers out of 315,000. Majority of that was transfers going to the capital project reserve fund. So rounding out your fund balance in the general fund of a little over 888,000. Now the way that fund balance is broken up, you'll see in the green section at the bottom, non-spendable piece to it means advances to other funds. So 303,000 of that 888 was advanced to other funds, which means it's basically money spent, it's just advanced to a different fund on this financial statement. The remaining balance, or one of the other remaining balances, are assigned balances of 216,000. This is for the Red Schoolhouse and some other reserves that have been set aside by a motion. So this rounds out the unassigned balance of 368,000. Now, looking at where this compared to fund expenditures for the year, that is that equation there, that 27%. Last year's percentage was actually 49%. So this year took a big hit, but majority of that related to that advance to other funds because it was TIF 6 and TIF 7 related. So all those project costs, everything that was incurred, general fund paid for it, but those costs and everything get recorded in those other funds.
Yeah. So when we set up, when we did 3rd Avenue, we did Lakeshore Drive. You remember we didn't borrow any money, so we, in essence, we're borrowing from the general fund, from ourselves.
Yep.
Any questions on the general fund specifically?
No.
Okay. Going over just some of the other funds there, CDBG fund, that's pretty self-explanatory as far as activity there. There's not too much during the year. The debt service fund, you currently have your general debt service and your TIF 3 debt service funds. Your TIF 3 debt service fund was actually closed out because TIF 3 was closed in 2014. So that transfer in that's showing in the middle of the page there, that 70,000, came from the general fund to close everything out to finalize that fund. And the reason that was closed was because your additional TIF 6 and TIF 7 then are open based on rules. You can't have too many TIFs open at one time. So that was closed in 2014. Then you have your capital projects funds. The general one is for a majority of the activity. You'll see the proceeds from long-term debt is shown there, and that is your city hall proceeds from that debt, as well as then that covers the portion of the transfer in from the general fund of that 245,000 that's set aside for future use. So you'll see that general capital projects fund has that ending balance, that fund balance of 2.5 million. That is committed because that's set aside for certain projects for long-term purposes. So in considering both the capital project general fund and the general fund itself that we talked about first, overall, in good fund balance position, the general fund, you want to make sure you have enough reserves set aside for certain number of months expenditures. With a little over 27% set aside, you have at least 4 months worth of expenditures set aside for reserves in case any emergency or anything of that nature is needed. And then the fact that you have your general capital project fund set up specifically for capital projects, that's a very healthy reserve for certain projects going on, and I know you have continuation of reserves being set aside. TIF 4 is in place, so that is showing a deficit, but that's just because there's still TIF increment being collected. So you'll see the ending fund balance for TIF 4 capital project fund of a little over $1 million. And in the bottom portion, in the yellow section of the spreadsheet, you'll see what we kind of do like a rough estimate recovery of that balance, how long it will take. And then you'll see there that the total to be recovered is a little over 1.1 million. And that's factoring in some future interest, over time. So what we're saying is based on the current revenue streams of about that 99,000 that's being shown there, it'll take about a little over 11 years to recoup then that 1.1 million. However, your TIF expires in 2024. So that's actually 9 years away. So there's a timing aspect. You might be a little short in TIF 4, but as you go through, you want to make sure you monitor that and that you're aware of it, because any shortfall becomes then responsibility of the general fund.
Which one is TIF 4?
Just a quick note, TIF 4 is the Weyauwega states. So when we've talked about the benchmarks not being hit, if the benchmarks would have been hit on that agreement, you'd have more probably residential units on the taxes, but it's not entirely residential. TIF 4 is basically the West Industrial Park and Mill Pond Circle in that area there.
So we have an opportunity to make it up with our latest.
Yes.
Because that could increase that.
Yeah, we did have a settlement on the development agreement. I think I mentioned this to Mike. It's kind of in progress right now, but the number of units that were to be constructed in the residential development agreement wasn't met. There was a performance penalty. As part of a settlement on the penalty, which was like an $80,000 penalty, we agreed to buy the residential lots, like 21 of them back, for half of what the infrastructure costs were. And then we're going to try to get them on the market, get homes built, and then that would add, hopefully, it won't be a lot of years, but we'd like to get increment.
Yeah.
Any new home we can get is going to
maybe
address that
5 years
shortfall.
worth of benefit out of it at least would be nice.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
So yeah, when we're talking about TIF 4, that's the northwest corner. TIF 6 is AgriPure.
Got it.
TIF
7
is OCS and the traffic plaza. There's TID 5, that is the cap services, but because we have not had any expense other than creating that, we don't report out a whole lot on that, but we will be talking about that in the coming months too, because TID reporting has changed through the state, so next year we will have to report out on our activities to the other jurisdictions, and with TID 5 just having revenue, we'll have to develop a plan or report on our plan out there. So, but you won't see that really in here because we haven't had expense off of TID 5.
Okay.
Correct.
Sorry, I don't mean to jump in on that.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
So TIF 6 and TIF 7, they are fairly new. You're still in the deficit situation there, but that's just because they are fairly new, incurring a lot of costs before that increment is collected. So again, that summary is at the bottom. The life of those two TIFs go out to 2035, so you've got 20 years to be able to collect on that increment. But overall, your fund balance with respect to your general, both from a capital project and your general fund, is a help. So, any questions on governmental funds?
No.
Turning the page on proprietary funds. This does a 2-year comparison of the sewer and water. Overall, if you look sewer comparatively, you'll see that the sewer revenues decreased. Majority of that was industrial related, customer-wise. The expenses increased, and mostly sewer rate study costs, additional repairs, costs, things of that kind. And then the change in the non-operating expenses from sewer from year to year. That non-operating piece includes interest and debt issuance costs, and because the project occurred in the sewer and started in 2015, and the debt started as far as issuance goes, those issuance costs instead of interest is shown. So overall, your sewer, factoring in the capital contributions, which is basically the TIF fund paid for those sewer, water and sewer related costs, but then those costs or those assets are really water sewer assets. So those assets do get reported on the water sewer funds. So in order to get them on that fund, that line item, that revenue source has to show there as a contribution coming in. So it rounds out your change in net position for sewer to be a little over $120,000 for the year, compared to the prior year of $274,000. So you'll see with that change in increase of expenses and reduction in revenue, that basically kind of hits your net position line there. If we look at water, well, actually in the same sense there, that rate of return is listed at the bottom for sewer. Last year was a little over 11% compared to the current year, 2015, of 4%. Hence why the sewer rate study was moved on and moved forward with the rates.
Yep, so we did, and you remember, we've got rate studies on both, or we did them on both. And we did have a sewer rate increase for January 1st of 2016. So this is looking back, obviously, at the end of 2015. And the same will be in the water. We moved on a water rate study with Ellers. We don't have the rates adjusted because that goes through the PSC, and that's a little bit more in depth.
That sewer and water, that includes the garbage and all that too, don't it?
No, so the garbage fee that we charge is a revenue for the general fund. So when we charge,
It goes on the utility bill, but it's actually a revenue source for the general fund.
Okay, same with that hydrant rent on?
the hydrant then would be under fire protection, so that's a water revenue.
Okay,
So we charge $7.50 a month for fire protection.
yeah,
That's charged to everyone, but that's a water revenue though.
okay, yeah.
Any questions on the sewer comparative numbers there? Okay. Looking at the water, revenues were fairly even there between years. The increase in water expenditures, mostly related to operating supplies and wage aspects, so it's timing of various things going on. The non-operating, the biggest change there was because of the non-operating project expense that occurred in 2014 regarding the tower rehab. Those costs, from as far as the PSC reporting standpoint, get expensed out, and that's what is included. A little over $213,000 of that 301 in that 2014 column represents the tower rehab costs. So rounding out your change in net position for water, the prior year it was in a net deficit situation, whereas this year you're almost break even. So in looking at the rate of return, from an operating income standpoint, it went from a little over 4% down to 2.2%. And again, looking forward at those rate increase, will help, looking at some future costs you'll incur, help looking at that, from a big picture standpoint, recouping. The one thing you'll note there also is the change in accounting principal line item, right in that net positions category. That was due to a pension, the Wisconsin Retirement System, from one of the GASBs, the Government Accounting Standards Board, had a new implementation accounting standard that was started in this year in 2015, that's why you won't see a comparative number for 14. And that effect of basically, the ins and outs of that new GASB changed the beginning balance, which is the requirement of that standard, to change the beginning balance of the net position, and then those numbers flow through on your balance sheet on the utility funds. It also affects the government-wide reporting on the financial statements, but not on your governmental fund necessarily. Still the same cash out payments, things like that. Nothing's changing for anyone's retirement, anything benefit-wise. It's all the same. It's just a reporting mechanism that the GASB kind of put out there. Just for consistency among municipalities, there was always certain retirement plans disclosed, but this one kind of adds in now the Wisconsin retirement system to that same reporting guidelines that other retirement plans are required to report on. So just more consistency that they wanted across the board. Any questions on the proprietary funds? Okay. If we look to the other slide, this is actually just summarizing our letters that we issued. There are 2 letters. One, the first letter discusses the auditor's responsibility under generally accepted audit standards. It mentions any accounting policy changes, and as I mentioned, that WRS pension plan asset relates to that new GASB implementation, so that's just noted in there that that was implemented. Whether or not there's any management judgments or estimates in the financial statements, and we do indicate there the useful lives of capital assets and depreciation are estimates. Whether or not that asset will actually last that lifetime, that's an estimate, as well as then the actuarial assumptions that deal with that WRS pension plan asset implementation of that standard. Because the state hired an actuary to evaluate their plan and basically then show a nice long spreadsheet of everybody who's part of it and your share of it, as far as how that works. Audit adjustments are mentioned in there, that we do several significant ones. However, I will note with that a lot less than the previous year, with knowing that there was still some transition with software issues and things like that, as far as from a training standpoint, but also just from the software itself. There was improvement, and now this next year going into the next software change, there'll still be some adjustments, but I think the finance team definitely has a handle over it, so.
Good.
Past adjustments, those adjustments that are not significant enough to record, but were still significant enough to tell you about them. And what these related to were payroll tax adjustments on accrued benefits, so accrued vacation, accrued sick time. There's still technically payroll taxes that would be paid on that when it's paid out, and those payroll taxes should be accrued for. But they weren't significant to record, so they just ended up on the list. The other letter, any questions on that particular letter? Pretty basic, boilerplate language, nothing out of the ordinary there. The second letter we issued is regarding internal control deficiencies. Again, these are pretty common that are noted across municipalities your size. The lack of segregation of duties, making sure that not one person does everything. There's still some aspects that could be segregated further, but you look at the cost benefit of it, it may not make sense to do it. So that's why we still repeat it, just from the standpoint of you should still be aware of that comment. Financial statements and disclosure, the fact that we, the auditors, as your independent auditors, are preparing those financial statements is completely fine, but we just can't be considered part of your internal control. So you're relying on us to prepare the financials, but we're just required to report to you then that, from the standpoint of preparation, it does, responsibility does lie with.
They're ours, we own them. The
Yes,
reports-
they are your financials, and you're responsible for them, but we just help in the preparation of them. The other area we mentioned there already that we mentioned in the other letter was the significant adjusting journal entries. And then another area that we mentioned is timely reconciliation of utility accounts. And that was mostly the software issue, just trying to get arms around, kind of what's outstanding, and specifically by fund. The software wasn't as easy to work with to be able to analyze that, but we wanted to mention it because going forward, that should be a focus to
Yeah,
be able
that
to.
was the old software that was replaced. correct?
Yeah, one of the big issues we had was that the sewer, you could not find a report that reported consumption on sewer. Now, if we're billing on what your usage is, it's difficult, I guess, is a word, but we've gone to Workhorse, which is something that you guys are familiar with
Yes,
quite a bit.
yes.
So, and that's part of why we went in,
Mhm.
hoping to correct that, and that's corrected a lot of those just issues with software, so.
Okay.
So the issues going forward, if there are some, should have that taken out of the picture in software, so.
Yes. So are there any questions on the letters or the audit itself?
No?
Okay. Well, we appreciate, Patrick and his team, Trina and Becky to have everything ready for us when we arrive and work through all the questions that we always have, on certain things when we review the information, as well as, reaching out to, don't recall who we reached out to during the audit, although I
To
do
Jack,
believe-
yeah, Jack,
I was gonna
I
say.
believe you had, Mike Lensmeyer had called you about the audit that
Yeah,
you checked on.
yeah.
Yeah, so we appreciate the
Yeah.
timeliness in getting back to
He
us.
said other than the checks I get under the table, it wasn't bad at all.
Exactly.
Great. For the record.
No, you like,
Yeah,
our new accounting system we got on the computer, you guys really like that, or
I'm sorry?
the new accounting system that we installed?
Well, So they like that software.
Yeah.
We'll get a better answer probably December, usually is when they come for their first preliminary field work.
Yes, and I was actually just talking to Trina about that,
Yeah.
before coming into here, just planning for that and kind of looking in and seeing if there's anything, that we see out of the ordinary or anything we can help with to make sure it's, reconciled and ready for us when we return back in March for
It
final.
was a long time coming, and we're glad we got it, it takes care of things,
Yep.
Good.
Well, we appreciate being able to offer our services to you guys, and please reach out to us during the year if you do have any questions about anything, we'd be happy.
Perfect.
Great, thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
Joy.
you.
Thanks for coming.
No problem.
And you're free to go with that too, so.
Probably really interesting, wants to stay for the rest.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Do we have a date scheduled for?
Not yet, I told Trina I was gonna work on that this week.
Okay, perfect. That better stay second, so.
Awesome.
That'll be good. Thank you so
very
much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
All right.
Jeff, you have to go too.
What?
You have to head out. Yeah, I guess it's up to the chair of the committee, but.
Yeah.
What?
I guess it's up to the chair of the committee, but.
Want me here, I can be here.
You're fine to clear out if you want.
What?
You're fine to clear out if you want. There's a lot of excitement though.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, see ya.
Thanks.
Tomorrow.
All right, thank you. I have a goal time. We're still on
All
time,
right.
so we're good.
I'll get it moving.
That's okay, that's no problem.
Pocket keeps buzzing.
Yeah, yeah.
Man today.
Well, it's just emails and all that. But, all right. Next we have a construction update for the municipal building.
We did have Corey on site today. I don't know, Jack, did you run into Corey today when he was, Corey Scheidler from Cedar Corp? He was
No.
in today, I met with you and he was in.
Yeah,
Immel had given notice that the final completion was last Thursday. So when they give that notice, that triggers the final inspection. And Corey was on site today, looked through, there's a number of items that are out there yet to be addressed. And what he's gonna do is he's gonna give them a 2-week letter that outlines the items. And there's some where there's like pencil marks on a column downstairs, there's some staining, door hinges and things like that. So you give them 2 weeks. And then if the items either get addressed in 2 weeks, it'll be that route, or if we need to take a credit and get someone else to come do some work, we could do that too. But it's more of just a report that we have had a final inspection. There's a 2-week notice. The only other item I would give you is that we are in touch with Heartland. They are on a schedule to get our outstanding items taken care of too, and that was coming in today. Coax for the TVs in the community room for, somebody mentioned a Super Bowl party they were looking at hosting or whatever. We'll get that up and running. The senior meal program moved in last week. Sounds like things are going well. There's a little bit of an adjustment we've had to make, or Justin touch base with you on. Our dishwasher needs to be bumped up 2 to 3 to 4 degrees in hot water. So the water coming in, it doesn't have a heater on it. It's a low temperature cycle, but it needs to be at 120 degrees. It's feeding in about 118. If you run some hot water, you're getting there, but we can tune up our hot water heater 8 degrees, 6 to 8 degrees, with the hope that down the line then it'll get to the dishwasher. So it's one of the items that's out there, but there's quite a bit. We're getting to the end. We're getting there. So
Right. Havoc stuff all figured out?
we're
HVAC.
getting there.
Okay. Is that on the
There's
list?
some new, so there's, yes.
Okay.
There are some issues with the seasonal, we're in this weird phase right now where the system's designed either to run as a cooling and heat intermittently if it needs to, or in the winter it will heat and cool a little bit if it needs to. But the heating system has a function where it will let in cold air from the outside rather than cool. And because it's been going from 40s to 70 to 40 to 70, there's some issues there with the transition, but at least they're happening now while we still have the people coming on site. There's like pressures in the building, and some of our controllers will find that there's low pressure, and they will shut down, where they will automatically take over and try to fix the heat and the pressure, and they won't let you override. So a couple headaches we have there. Pretty advanced system.
Yeah, sounds,
We're getting a pretty advanced understanding of it.
sure, that sounds great.
Yeah. But it's,
Okay.
I mean, it seems to be okay. It seems
Yeah.
to be okay though.
We're on, got it on the list, so.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, anything else?
No, that would be about it. Obviously, we don't have a pay request. We're essentially holding out on the final, we're holding money till the project's done, so.
Okay.
Okay?
Next we got discussion possible action on the aerial photo.
Yes, I do not have, the pictures are downstairs. The gentleman came to the full city council meeting.
Yep.
And in the $400 range, he had mentioned that he could sell, he had a framed 1972 picture that showed the city, and then he also had some aerial photos, which I think you all saw,
Yeah.
of downtown. And what we had mentioned to him is that if there was going to be a purchase of that type of artwork, we'd run it through the finance committee. So, do you have thoughts on?
Yeah, I'd asked him, would it be possible to get a, 2016 version of the same shot?
That same view? And he said that he could.
Yeah.
The pricing that he was looking at was going to be the same.
Oh, no volume discount? No.
No, I mean, and I guess the question might be, so the volume, if you're buying two, it's basically the same, 400 a piece. I mean, I don't know, we're buying,
I kinda like the picture, but I agree with Keith, it's just,
Do we have
I'd
a,
like to see an updated
do
one,
we
you
have a
know?
spot for it too?
I think we probably do. We don't really have anything on the walls, partially because the walls are ours, but they're not checked out to us yet, so within 2 weeks,
Yeah.
they'll be our walls.
Not that I'm in a rush to put holes in the wall or anything.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's spots to put things. There's artwork. You could fill this room. You
Yeah.
could put things up here if you needed to. There's a lot of empty walls through the hallways and that.
I guess, is it possible to get a picture of 2016 so we can see it beforehand? Or is that not a possibility because it is, fly over?
Too bad you should've took it already, but the colors were all,
Yeah.
fall colors would be pretty, but.
I thought, I'll check the game tape, but I thought he mentioned that
I
if
thought
he
he
needed to
had
get one,
something.
he could, or maybe he did.
Yeah.
I'll check with him, yeah.
Yeah, because I thought he said that it was around this time that other picture was taken.
Right.
And I think Keith mentioned that it would be cool if you could have gotten
Yeah.
at the
That's
same
what we
one.
kind of talked
But
about.
before you make any decisions, you want to be able to see what that picture looks like? What the new one looks like too?
I think so. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't,
Well,
I'm not,
I've never,
I
I've
guess
never
I
bought
just-
these pictures before.
Well, I'm just thinking of the fact that, okay, this is like a $400 picture, so we're asking him to get this picture done up and matted.
Well, I'm not
and everything.
saying to get it done matted. I
You
mean,
just
it can
want
be
a
a digital
regular-
picture. I guess, you know, hey.
oh, to see what it looks like, you mean?
Yeah. What would you propose for that second picture if we were to get one? I'd like to see that before we said, yeah, I want to spend.
What it looks like. The price is probably $400.
Because I think the 72 one is cool, and what makes it cool is if you have a side by side
Side with
comparison.
the-
Yeah.
Hey, it is. and
Yeah.
Yeah,
here
if
it
you got a
is.
new one, we'd probably buy both of them.
Yeah, and so I guess I'm not against the 72 one, but I guess to have the 72 one be kind of cool, you need something next to it, and I don't know what that looks like. So it's kind of hard to say, yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It
Yeah,
makes
it
sense
does.
in that standpoint, but I would be just like, get it.
Do you, so he came with pictures of downtown and the new city hall. I don't know that that pops up on that 1972 picture, or the updated one, I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know if,
And I guess if we're gonna make a decision too, can we get, even if it's just a copy of the photo? 'Cause I mean, I guess I'd like to see it. We saw it briefly, but tell you the truth, I can't remember exactly what you can and can't see, and I'd kind of like to look through it. And
yeah, I don't think we've got that 1972 one. I think he had it
yeah, he had it. I
and
know.
took it, which was fine, but.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can just, you know, something that of course we can't. I don't want to steal his artwork or anything like that. I just would like to see it again.
So
It
should
doesn't
we,
have to be the
or
bad.
could we invite him to come to our finance meeting next month with the picture so we could take a look at
Well,
it
I
better?
don't
So-
think we need to go that far. I mean, is there a simple, you know, scan document? You know, doesn't have to be great quality.
Yeah, I can check it out. The one thing that we might have is instead of waiting till next month, if he's looking at taking a picture with these fall colors,
They're gone.
next, well, maybe they're gone now, but next Monday is when we're probably having a special council meeting on the appointment.
Yeah,
We're all gonna be together next Monday, maybe it's,
I guess I don't see a rush on this.
yeah.
I mean, it's cool,
Right.
but it doesn't go away in a month, a year, or whatever. So I'm not super rushed on it, but I do think it's neat. I think it's something to keep.
Yeah,
Because I mean, it would be a
okay.
cool thing to hang up on the wall, but I don't want to rush into a $400 picture. That sounds
Yeah,
like a lot to me.
that's reasonable. So do you, what would you like then on moving forward? Do you want to see if he's got the picture?
I mean,
See if he took one like that angle, or?
yeah, if we can just check and see if he was able to get one. If not, I guess I just like to see that 72 one once again. Because I mean, I didn't look at it real closely. I just kind of breezed over it. Yeah, it looks cool. It'd be nice to kind of see what kind of landmarks we can see and see whether we think, hey, if you take another picture today, is it going to really show any difference to really have the effect that we think it's going to have?
Yeah.
I don't remember what was all on it.
I know they're
Yeah.
cool pictures. My grandma and grandpa have one out their property that the
Yeah.
guy took, and then they have another updated one from
Yeah.
just seeing the different changes is kind of cool.
So yeah, sorry, but I'd
Okay,
just like to
I'll
see
check
a
with
little
him
more on the
on that.
landmarks. So that way we can kind of see where
Yeah.
the changes are before we say yeah.
That's fine.
All right, mayor, city council compensation.
This is an item that we talked about last month,
Yep.
and the topic came up because typically if the compensation is to be changed, it has to be changed before the nomination period opens, which is December 1st.
Yep.
So what you're looking at is the $2,500 set salary that the mayor receives and the $1,000 salary that the council receives. Those are in April, at the end of the year, you get those. And then you're also aware that you get $25 for each committee meeting that you are a standing member of. And for when you're attending those, you get your $25, that's your monthly fee. We had a discussion last month, there's some talk about potentially upgrading both of them by $500. I do have this sheet, which is on your screen, which is the sheet I had last month that sort of had the villages that got back to me, the cities. The one that I can update is I thought I printed the city of Weyauwega is I think it's downstairs yet. But I can touch base, you know, Weyauwega gets $2,500 for the mayor, $1,000 for the council. City of Marion, $4,000 for the mayor, $1,900 for the council, and it's paid as a monthly salary. Clintonville, $4,500 for the mayor, $2,500 for the council. I will be looking this up here on my phone. It's higher, more back up. I don't have that off the top of my head here, and I don't have that on that sheet.
Yeah.
But you'll see the villages going down, also the towns. And then the second sheet, which is a new sheet, was back in April, the town of Little Wolf had done a town study on all of the other, I thought it was Little Wolf. I believe this is their sheet that they had to their own people. And you'll see that the town chairman, if you're gonna, that's sort of the comparable position when you're looking at towns, other than the fact that it's a town, not a city. So you'll see across the board, the chairman, what they all make, the supervisors, what they make, and then if the per diem then is if they get paid per meeting. One of the things we talked about at this committee last month was, should there be an increase on the fixed salary? And should there be something on the per diem pay for council, but also the citizen members of the plan commission, board of review?
Yeah.
They all get paid, whatever that per diem is, if they're paid too. And then the only other note that I'll just review with you then is, so if you make a change, the new salary goes into effect for the new terms. So if you do not have a term that expires this April, you're on the old salary until April of 2018. And then that new salary would kick in. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So you're setting this for the length of the 2-year term, for the mayor and 3 council positions.
Well, I'd like to say that I brought this up 10 years ago when I was on the council. And now again, I get looking at it and I'm talking to people, and now after I see what this really is, there's a whole lot of reasons why I think we definitely gotta do something. Number one, just my job trying to get people to come to a meeting. It's getting hard, and getting somebody to fill positions in these chairs, it's getting hard. It's nothing really, the younger people, number one, they go, oh, I don't wanna do that for like $25. Bullshit, I can go out, And the townships, look what they're making. I mean, and I don't think we gotta have a raise like that, but I talked to Patrick this afternoon and I said, I think without being exaggerating or nothing, I think we should, the mayor and each council member should go up $500. I think our meetings should go to $35. And I think the citizen committee should go to $50. For a whole lot of reasons. And that's not really a big rate. I mean, it's basically peanuts compared to what everybody else is and compared to our total budget. So I just think it's...
We talked about this last month, but I don't remember there being any consensus or talk of the 500 per mayor and council besides what you brought up initially. And then we talked about doing the 50 for the plans, or the citizen committee.
Right.
And everybody was in agreement on that, and I brought that to the council as a discussion point. And during the council, there was no feedback at all on the record on it. It was crickets all around. So my personal feeling, and I know Shani and I discussed it, in this meeting last month, that we were both good with doing the 50 on the citizen committees. And since we got no feedback from the council and we didn't have a strong passion to raise it otherwise, that would be the only thing I would go with. So I'd make a motion to increase the citizen committee members to $50, and that would be my only adjustment.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
I'll second that.
You have, so what you're looking at then is just on the citizens alone.
Yeah.
And with this motion, unless there's a further motion or more discussion, you'd be
It'll still go to
leaving
the council, so I mean, the council still have a chance to
So what-
inject what they feel is right, but based on the fact that I got crickets last time, I'm going with what we had discussed. And everybody will have a chance to go at her, and give their input at the full council.
Do you want a line item? The finance committee is recommending then a line item on the full council agenda that says vote on compensation for council then? So then you have to have a vote? Or do you wanna have that, because if you don't have it on the council agenda,
Well, I would ask, if it's not on, I'm gonna ask to put it on the agenda.
We can
and
put it
as
on
the
the
mayor, I mean, you're able to do that too.
I'm fine with that, so we can have on the agenda, so do we, and then as a separate line item though, because I think the citizen committee one,
Well, you wanna, so you do
that
have
one's
to
a
take a
separate line
motion
item.
on the council terms.
And
on
the
the
next
actual
will be
positions.
discussion and possible action on a $500 increase for both council and mayor.
Well, so as the mayor is the chair of the full council, or he runs the meetings, maybe we'll, I mean, do you want to defer to Jack on the language, if it's on council and mayor salaries, or do you want a recommendation on
Well, okay,
$500 increase? I guess how,
I guess if it was coming from the finance committee, I would say that we want it to be something that we can, I'm not gonna say it as a motion.
okay, I mean, we can put it under the finance committee,
Yep.
if you have a recommendation, or we can put it under new business, which is where we put appointments by the mayor, those types of things.
That's probably the word, put it under new business,
I'm okay with that.
yeah.
That
Okay.
makes sense, because then we,
And I will talk to you then about, does it just say pay,
Yeah,
or does it say
an amount.
request to increase, or whatever it will be?
The only thing is, if you don't put it in general, just talking about it, if we don't put an amount on there, most likely it's gonna be crickets.
yeah.
And if you put an amount on there and we force a vote, then at least there's a vote on there.
But like
I'm
I
not saying
said,
you have to, it's just, from what I've seen in the past, and if we don't put a dollar amount on there, it's probably gonna be very quiet.
Yeah.
And at least if we put a dollar amount on there, whatever you suggest, I think then it
Yeah.
forces people to either say yes or no,
yeah,
so.
that's a good idea.
Okay, I will talk to you then about, we'll put it under new business, so it won't go to the finance.
All right.
This motion here, you didn't vote on it yet, but essentially you have.
Yeah, I
but-
didn't, yeah.
But if this is the motion, this will be under finance, and
Okay.
then,
Perfect.
okay, and then when would you want this to take effect then? For the citizens, January 1st, or, because when it's on the council, the terms determine it. When it comes to citizen pay, if you could pick a point in time where we start paying it,
Just
I
do
think you
Jan-
should.
January 1st is still.
I thought it was by law, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Yeah,
you can't vote yourself for raise, and that's what I'm saying,
but
so.
this, yep, so, but this is on the citizen portion though.
Oh, the citizen, that would,
Yeah, that's-
yeah, that could start January first, right?
Yeah, the
Whatever's
council will
cleanest, I
be
guess,
April,
Yeah.
the third Tuesday in April or whatever, so that's
Yeah.
already good.
That would be fine with
Just
me,
the
yeah.
citizens, at what point
Yeah.
are we paying?
January first would be perfect, yeah.
Okay.
And then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There, we're gonna get your official vote there.
Perfect.
Alright, let's see, yeah, let's go back up here. Alright, next we have the review of the 2017 budget.
So we've been running, in October, you basically have the same draft document that was presented to you in October.
Okay.
The 4-page summary sheet that is here, there is one change that was made. The one change is, I believe we had a $1,600 decrease, and it comes in the state shared road revenue. Right here, had dropped $1,600. We got a confirmation on how much we're getting from the state. So a lot of these numbers the state will tell you, here's what we're paying you. So when it comes to intergovernmental revenues, right here is the state shared revenues, this line item.
Mm-hmm.
So when it says 519, 522, it's because the state's telling you, here's your share of the state aid. The expenditure restraint is $23,716.
Mm-hmm.
I will come back to that, because expenditure restraint is a aid program that says if you can restrain on increasing your expenses, it's sort of a carrot or a bonus aid that comes to you. So every year they adjust a formula, and if you come in under a percentage, which is based on your new construction, your new values, but it's also based on roughly 2%, is kind of a, if it's more than 2%, you get 2, if it's lower than 2%, you get, it's one of those, it escapes me at the moment, but going into this year, we were able to increase our expenses by 0.4%. So to keep our $24,000, we needed to not raise our expenses by 0.4%. Well, going into 2016, because we lost revenue, we actually reduced our expenses. And so we didn't raise them up. And so we kept that money. One of the good things about Agri-Peer's development and construction in town is that we've talked about the levy limits, that you can't just raise taxes. You know, technically you cannot raise taxes just because. It's based on a formula of new construction. Now, when the city has had less than 1% in new value added in some prior years, our formula has gone up like 0.7%. So you can raise your levy by 0.7%. We've talked about Agri-Peer, the new gas station, a lot of the new construction in town. We had 5.4% growth in new construction. So what the levy limits say, and the law says, is you can raise your levy, the amount that we tax, by the amount of new construction. So we've talked about you having a possibility to increase 5.38%, 5.4%. That, as these numbers get more concrete from the state, our values get more concrete, I believe last month we had been estimating that a $40,000 increase in our levy, which is the 5.38%, would equate to 40 cents on the tax rate. So you'd be increasing by 40 cents. Now that our values have come in and been affirmed, that 40,000 is actually closer to 30 cents. So when we're talking in cents, on a $100,000 home, you're paying 100 times 30 cents per thousand, so $30. So we've talked about the one-time opportunity you have. If you want to raise the levy, you're able to because of the growth in town. So that's one thing we're looking at, that's one option you have.
Yep.
The other issue we have is this expenditure restraint. And we will go into a deeper detail and probably in closed session under goals, and then also at the full council and open session, we'll talk about the impact of raising the levy now, and then in a year from now, as some of our debt comes off, that has something to do with this expenditure restraint formula. And so my fear would be, we give you all the options. You get to maintain the tax rate the same, you could cut the taxes, you could raise the taxes, you have lots of options. But if you would choose the route of increasing the levy the amount that you're allowed, and if taxes are increased, my fear, or one of the things I'm looking at is 2 years down the road, if you start increasing your taxes or your spending, and we're not really increasing spending, but our debt that comes off, our pie will stay the same, so the amount of money we're spending stays the same. Right now we get a credit for the debt we're paying, but in 2018, our road debt from 2003 will come off. It's treated as part of this expenditure restraint like we're spending an extra $50,000. So in that formula, there's some things happening with our debt coming off where we might not be increasing expenses, but it may look like we are for purposes of this money. So long story short, if you raise taxes $30,000 to $40,000 today, I'm looking 2 years down the road, because if you would go with that, the PR or the discussion would be you raise taxes. But if in 2 years we lose this expenditure restraint money, or if you have to cut that to keep that money, what you wouldn't want to do is raise your money now only to in a year cut it all back, because it's going to counterproductive. So we'll lay that out a little bit better to you as these numbers are finalizing though.
Okay.
One of the decisions that you have to make is, what is the tax levy number? Going into this year, we had raised $754,000 from the property tax. It looks like we will have $10,000 coming in naturally. So because of the new growth in town, we should be able to raise $10,000 in new tax money and keep the tax rate the same. Now, you have the ability to go up to, from $754 up to $795. So that's where the $40,000 increase would be, the allowable increase. But like I said, if you make that decision to collect or raise the levy, and then some of the other pieces of your funding. So $790,000 is $1 million less than what our total expenses are. So our shared revenue, our other fees, we make $1 million off of non-tax revenue. And if we're gonna raise taxes and deal with all of the things that go with that, you don't wanna have your shared aid or things like that come down, because then,
Yeah. When do we find out exactly what would occur there? Or is that something that you know, we just have to speak about differently?
well, I've got some insight on it, but we'll go into with closed session, and it's got more to do with administrator goals, administrator expectations, because looking into 2017, which is we budget year to year, and we would be able to increase our amount, we'd be able to increase taxes, and if you're only looking at 2017, we've got the option to do that. If your expectation for me is that you want us to start looking into a 2-year budget or expanding our projections,
Mm-hmm.
I would want to talk in closed session about expectations and how we're doing there. And especially one of the things I'd want to talk about would be as part of the review, which we've been talking about in closed session.
Yep.
Because this council will set the budget, this council will set the expectations, but a new council comes in April, a new council has to deal with next year's budget decision and next year's review. So I want to talk a little bit on formalizing expectations for that, if that makes
Yep,
sense.
guidance in writing, so that way it's more defined.
But that's one of the
somebody
things
else
I'm
looks
looking
back.
at right now, and it's more just developing your options to say, if you want to keep the tax rate the same, here's what we can do. If you want to go your maximum allowable, here's what we can do. So we'll talk about that briefly, probably in closed session today and with the full council.
Okay.
That's one thing. The other thing, I'll just back up then, and we will just look at, under finance, the main thing we look at is this general government, because that's pretty much the oversight committee here, is general government. Maybe what I'll do is we'll just talk line by line through that.
Okay.
So the city council and the mayor, we have a small increase proposed here. Now this is 50% of your wages. 50% is off the general fund. 25% we've been charging off of the water fund, because you're also governing the water utility. 25% of it comes off of the sewer utility. So when we're looking right here, that's an amount. Now, if there was a decision to increase these salaries, we would also make a minor adjustment to this budget line item then too. As it comes down to administrators' expenses, what you have there is memberships, phone, cell phone, mileage, those things are wrapped up in that line item. So like my professional memberships and things like that, that's what we've got. It's not really a spending.
Okay, we didn't even have to increase that any, because didn't we change the cell phone thing with the public works stuff?
We did, but with that though, that's my personal, or my work phone. So this line item is just my,
Okay, yeah, that
Phone.
goes into the water or sewer utility, doesn't it?
so, and that is 50% of my phone cost is out of the general fund, and then we put 25
Okay.
to the water and sewer. Now for public works, because the reason we gave them the phones was for the water and sewer emergencies,
Yep.
that is not covered into the general fund, that's water sewer just for public works.
Okay.
I've got a line item, I lost my mouse. We're looking at salary here, this is a prorated amount, 50%, it's salary and benefits. Roughly and actually the mileage amount, I believe is the mileage that I get paid is out of that $52,000. So again, that's 50% of the general fund, 25. Actually, there's a portion that goes to water, a portion to sewer, and then starting this year, we put 10% of my cost to the TIFs, the TIDs, because of the work with AgriPeer, the work on TIF districts. Some of my costs are being assigned to the TIDs then. Publications, typically what we've had there is if we get, people have a request for conditional use, we have to notice something, a zoning change. liquor licenses and things like that, we have to pay to put them in the paper, so we're publishing notices in the paper. That number should be okay, roughly at $3,000. Let's see, we've been, it kind of comes up and down over the last few years, but right in $3,000, that should be good. With the elections, we're sitting at $4,000. We should be pretty good there. We will be making probably an adjustment, because going into 2016, we had raised up that amount, $1,000, but because of the presidential race and we had more elections this year, we are going over, so we'll make a budget amendment, I guess, for this year. But for $4,000, that should be good. Next year, we'll be back to more of a normal year. In office supplies, $10,900, we're looking at no change. Assessment of properties, we're looking at just a $100 increase. That's our assessor keeping tabs on valuations, building permits. Basically, we're paying our assessor $5,000 a year to keep tabs on all of our valuations, file reports. Bookkeeper accountant, that would be Trina. Again, she is prorated, water, sewer, general fund. That's all the salary and payroll costs, so our taxes and everything like that. Auditing, we're looking at is $13,000. A little bit of an increase there. Joy was here, she talked about the pension reporting requirements. There is more work that they have to do with that. And so as a result, I think it's fair to have about $13,000 amount for the general fund. We're thinking that that cost is going to go down in the future. This year though, and in 2017, we're working on getting the new software fine-tuned. So we should be pretty good in that amount. Codification, that is just updating our ordinances, paying for a service that keeps them online. And then when we change ordinances, then the codification company that changes all of our records online and makes those. So there's that. City attorney, you will notice we've had 3 line items here, and the prosecution and the railroad prosecution we have had lumped as one as part of the reporting out of the old software. Our prosecution, we had a meeting today with our prosecutor, and he was with Jim Kelly's firm, and then that firm from Oshkosh moved to Von Briesen. So it's the same guys, same office, they're now under a different banner. We talked to them today about roughly $25,000 in ticket revenue that we take in. And in the past, we had been paying $5,000 or less for prosecution. We also had a backlog of cases. And so we were making $20,000, but we had cases that weren't getting adjudicated. When we brought this firm on, they did a lot of backlogging. While we're taking in $25,000, we were spending, I believe in 2014-15, up to $50,000 on prosecution. But a lot of that was getting processes in place, getting on the backlog. I won't go too deep into that. That's more of a closed session discussion probably, if we need that. We did have a meeting with the prosecutor today. We just asked him, what is the effort? What should we be running with this municipal court? And their work is very good. It's top-notch work. But we've told them if we're earning $25,000, we would like to pay less than that. And what they think that they can get to is $10,000 to $15,000 in costs, so that they're efficient enough that they don't have to be in court, they don't have to show up for things that can be handled over the phone. They can establish policies with the judge or the court, where the court isn't just referring people that don't know how to plead. In the past, the court has just told them, well, you can contact the city prosecutor. Well, we pay for that then. So somebody just doesn't know, should I plead guilty, no contest? We don't say that we won't help people, because that's not a good thing to do. But what we're working on is with the court, can they spend a minute to talk to somebody and then maybe another minute or two to tell them, here's the ramifications of your decision. So that would save us over $200 an hour just on those types of things. So our fees are coming down. I do like that. A lot of this general work has been, whenever we have the city attorney general, that would be Jim Kelly and Davison Cuthall. So when we have ordinances, we have ethics, we have personnel issues, those all come through that line item. Whenever we have anything with City Hall, we've been posting that to the City Hall item. The Weyauwega Estates work, we posted to the TIFs, so if those are all related to Agri-Peer, we're paying out of the TIF, so that's not represented here. But we've had a couple of years where we've been catching up on a lot of things with our attorneys. And we've also had a couple of things that have popped up that have required their attention too. So, I think we're catching up. There goes the door locks.
So you were locked in?
I'll prop the door open quick, but, I think we're getting to a good spot though. I think the $50,000 might even be too high, because if we can get our prosecutor down to about 10 to 15,000, I think it's reasonable that we've been spending, let's just look at the general line item here. General, in 2016, we've had set aside $20,000 for general HR ordinances, those types of things. Code enforcement, so the letters, the raising letters and that.
Mm-hmm.
With all of that work that's been done, we've spent $6,600 this year, and I think that's reasonable. And we're doing a lot of good work too. So we took an ordinance, but all these ordinances that we're updating and ordinances that we're trying to enforce, when we have our attorneys draft letters, we need their work. But we're also not spending an exorbitant amount of money now, or the trend is that we're coming back down. So does that make sense? I think there's a little bit of savings to be found here, because like I said, you know, if prosecution can be $15,000, we're probably looking at, you know, 30 to 35,000 for general attorney work, and that's not really unreasonable. I think that's pretty good, because we're technically running a $4 million business here, and you run into situations where you need attorneys to make sure the land acquisitions are going well, and that sometimes you spend that money up front so that you're making good decisions, that you don't have to spend more down the road. Any questions on that at all?
Cool.
Okay. The next line item is a legal professional fees. What we've had is, in the past, when we had the city attorney, we had $8,000 to $10,000 in outside attorney's fees. The setup that we have now with Davis and Cuthall is that either we're paying Jim Kelly to be the city attorney, or we're paying one of their attorneys. So that money that we used to have $8,000 to $10,000 down in the other legal is actually baked into what we're paying the city. The municipal building, we just have an estimate for 2017. We've been looking at projections on power use, cleaning. If we don't have to hire a cleaning service, obviously that's a big, probably $1,000 a month we can save on.
We get any movement on that?
We have 4 candidates right now.
Nice.
We've been interviewing, we had 6 apply, 4 of them that are local and do this work already. And the interviews have been walk-through interviews. And the interviews have been walk through the building, explain what it is we're looking to have done, what we can get clean. I've been getting feedback from people on how much do you think. Again, the whole purpose of this interim person is that we're not sure we need a cleaning company 5 days a week yet. And so that's kind of been the pitch. What do you think about cleaning this? This would be that. I have one more that has to walk through tomorrow, but with the election, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
But by Thursday, I'd like to have somebody on board, and we're good to go.
Okay.
We did get a good response on that though. But we're looking at the power usage, the water, the sewer. $50,000 is probably a good estimate right now, but again, it's an estimate. We're using 4 to 5 months of energy use of this new building, and just trying to pitch that forward. Having a full year in the building will help, because we'll be able to track our costs. And then this cleaning issue is potentially a $10,000 to $12,000 savings if we can do it in-house. So we're looking at there. Self-funded insurance, DAP, and screening. We're looking at $1,500, keeping that the same. Property liability insurance, we are starting to come down a little bit off of our insurance costs. The $38,000, I believe there's an adjustment, something might be misposted there for 2016. But it looks like, based off of the costs now, we're starting to develop a better track record where our costs are coming down, because they couldn't go much higher after we had been dropped 2 years ago. Getting insurance was key, and now we're starting to develop a record of good decisions, good experience. Contingency is basically like a miscellaneous fund. In the past, we've had larger amounts in this line item. At $1,800, we're basically looking at 10% of our budget.
18,000?
1%, I'm sorry. 18,000 as opposed to 1.8. My math's out there. 18,333. It's unexpected things, it's like a miscellaneous contingency fund there. Sales tax, there are some items that we do have to report sales tax to. So in our shelter rentals, some of our rentals, some of the things that happen at the library, when they take in fees, they do have to pay sales tax on some of the things. So any sales tax that we have to take in there, we do pay out of that amount. That's like the League of Wisconsin Municipalities membership, those types of things, that's $1,750. That's been pretty accurate as you look back over the past few years. Unemployment insurance assessment, we haven't been charged an assessment on unemployment because we haven't had anyone that was employed with us that was let go or had been unemployed. So our record there is if we would have somebody that was terminated or whatever it might be, we would use that as a contingency line item. Deputy clerk, again, that would be under Becky's costs, paying salary, payroll taxes. The tuition and training program, I do have a $500 amount there. That is, a few years ago, we had passed, or the city council passed, a proposal I put together that said for people that want to further their degrees, go to get a bachelor's degree, get a leadership training, that if they could provide a write-up that said, I went and did this, and here's how it will help me in my job, that they could be eligible for a $500 reimbursement as long as they passed the class, got their grades. And we've had a couple employees that have been seeking their bachelor's, and a couple that have been paid the $500. This last year, I believe Adam had signed up for the program, but then took a new job. So he didn't complete the class, we didn't pay him. But that $500 though it carries a 2-year contingency on it, that you need to stay with the city for 2 years, and if you don't, then you pay back a prorated share of that money. So we've had it in there for one employee to be able to take advantage of that. Other than that, public safety, public works, a lot of these things will be going through the other committees. I appreciate that we got together tonight because the auditors were able to make it today, so that was a good thing. But you know, as it relates to our revenues, one of the other things that our expenses I may just mention here is that the blue line items, we're paying roughly $95,000 on the first payments on City Hall in 2017. So that's $95,000 in addition to the regular debt we would be paying, and it just has to do with that overlap that we're paying.
1 year overlap.
And then in 2018, the 2003 debt will come off. And then the net effect on City Hall is that after we get through this transition, in 2018, we'll be paying $30,000 more than what our debt had been previously. So the extra expense for us to pay off City Hall is $30,000 for 6 years. And then in 2023, that next set of debt comes off, and then we're back to normal then with what we've been paying on our debt. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So as we start to do projects, we've been paying cash for a lot of projects, road projects, the park, shelter. We haven't borrowed money except for the City Hall and the treatment plant. And we've been pretty responsible in that end. So that is what we're looking at with the budget. One of the things that's hanging out there, and one of the things I'm going to ask you in closed session about is on wages. The budget has been put together with a certain percentage set aside, but we haven't had a discussion or a full decision yet on wages, wage percentages. Part of it is that we're talking about review processes, and I think at the full council we'll probably come to a decision on raises for next year. But I think tentatively what we had put in there was that it was up to 2.5–3% could be accommodated in the budget, but that doesn't mean, that hasn't been voted on yet by the city council. So we'll talk about that too.
Right.
Any questions at all on anything there?
No,
Okay,
pretty straightforward.
that sounds good.
That wise, I feel good. I know you sat through the other ones a couple times where they talked about where that's at.
Yeah, and that was this kind of we've talked about.
They talked about where that
Sliding.
swing is and the trigger points for our drops. So I feel good about where we're at. So.
Okay. I think what I'll do then is I'll hold off the discussion on your options on raising the taxes.
Yep.
We'll hold that for the full council, if that's okay. We've talked about, I don't know that you need a recommendation here because
That's fine as long
I
as,
can give you the full,
yeah, I mean, if we're gonna talk about it in a closed session, I think from there we'll probably have a good idea on which way we're gonna wanna take it and why.
Right.
And then maybe we add an item to the finance thing if we can come away with that there.
so, yep, and I think that's reasonable. The other thing I would add on there is that because you have, next Monday is a full council meeting, whoever gets appointed to the city council, the following Monday will be on board when we vote on the budget. So
Oh.
technically, you have the next 2 Monday nights.
Yeah.
I think if we have an advisory discussion on the budget next Monday,
We can have our
leading
piece
into
set
the full
there.
council then,
Okay,
does that make sense?
yeah, so it's gonna be basically,
Okay.
we'll know where everybody's at
Yep.
there.
Yep.
For the most part. Okay,
That sounds good, that sounds good to me, so.
oh, that's okay.
So do you wanna treat this just as a informational review here and then,
Yeah, because we're gonna have to bring that person on board and then maybe after that session, we discuss. Exactly how it's put. If
Yeah, we
there's
can do
any
that.
confusion on
there's
it.
gonna have to be whoever it is that gets appointed is gonna have to be brought up to speed because it's someone who hasn't been on the council
Yeah,
the last couple of years, so I'm happy that we have a single night where we can find out who that is, and then I have a week to get them up to speed. But
Yeah.
we'll start that discussion next Monday night, though.
yeah,
Okay? All right. And there are no more committees that meet this week. It's next Monday is Public Works, Tuesday is Police and Public and Rec.
there isn't public works tonight then?
No, it got moved to next Monday night.
That's good.
Maybe I didn't get back to you. I think you said it was going to do that. And then I talked to Bruce and Nick and they said, yep, that's fine.
Okay, no, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. Good.
That means I have to have another
But
meeting.
that's right, I didn't confirm it. I asked you and you said it was okay, but I didn't confirm, so I apologize.
No, that's fine. If the calendar's up today, I probably know that though.
Might be. I'll check it.
I don't know, it wasn't this morning, but.
Okay. The paper one I think is good. Okay.
Alright, next, moving on. I'll make a motion to approve checks 32660 through 32722 totaling $362,076.99 and monthly financial reports.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Nadowski?
Aye.
Appleby?
Aye.
Okay.
Man, excuse me. Next, we move on to the administrator's report.
I've spoken quite a bit. One of the things that I'll just mention is that we do have the election tomorrow. We are going to hold the election. One of the thoughts is that we have it up here. I think for ease of getting people in and out, we're gonna have it downstairs. So we did work with the senior meal program on sharing the space, and that is very greatly appreciated that we can do that. The other thing that I would like to mention is that you will see petition seekers tomorrow. And what I mean by that is there's a group that's recommended or requested the ability to set up a table, not in the building, but on the polling location to collect signatures for a petition related to campaign finance. They can't bother people, they can't sway opinion. What they can do is inform on their petition, and they are legally able to be within 100 feet of the polling location as long as they're not, I don't want to say bothering, but that's an easy describable word to say you're there, but you're collecting your petitions.
And you met with them, so I guess how do we ensure that they're not?
Well,
bothering more?
so we didn't meet with them. They sent a letter, and it's not, I don't believe it's local, it's not a local group. They sent a letter that we just got in the mail today, but in the meantime, they emailed and wanted a decision before we got it in the mail. Shout out to Attorney Calney, he said as per the terms of the Government Accountability Board standards and the state law, they're allowed to be here, but they can't block pedestrian traffic, they can't block traffic. One of the things we're gonna recommend to them is that all the parking's in the back, they wanna set up a table, we have parking lots, we have a public area. We don't want them on the sidewalk out here because that will block the sidewalk. And realistically, more people will probably be in the back. So we'll make a pitch so they can walk on the front and they can have a table in the back. Tomorrow is
What if you just say no?
expected, we can't.
Okay.
And partially because our city ordinance is not written in such an order
Yeah,
where.
we should write that or change that in a way where it says something
I think
about
we'll have
so
some
much
modifications there.
time of notice. Because I guess I would
The
have.
good news is they let us know. So
Yeah.
that was a good thing, but it's.
It'd be one of those things where it'd be nice to review what the
Mhm. I agree.
organization is about prior to
Yeah.
having them here.
Yeah, and so we sort of expected tomorrow's gonna be different. This whole election's been different than others, so if that's the worst thing that happens tomorrow, that'll be, there are no problems. Should be a good thing, but Becky's been overloaded with new voter registrations, early voting. She's been handling that very, very well. I appreciate that very, very much for the record, so. It'll be fun. It'll be fun tomorrow, so.
Alright,
And that's all I've got, you know, the auditors were here, we're working on getting ready for them to come next month to start looking at the new software in 2016. We've been busy, but things are going well.
alright. Alright, next we got to set the meeting for December. Which.
There was a request for,
Actually, we should probably hold this for the council meeting, because that person's gonna be on the meeting.
there was a request either on Public Works or Finance to meet the first Monday in December. And it's written in my office, that escapes me right now.
Okay, either way, since we have
Figure out what it was that we had.
such a new participant, we should probably
Right.
hold it till. So next is other such matters, which I don't believe there's any, but unless you got anything. Alright, next we'll go to, make a motion to go to closed session pursuant to 19.851C Wisconsin statutes, consideration of employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation, data, city employees, subject to jurisdiction authority of the council, reason for the closed session, discuss goals and wages for 2017 budget. Committee may reconvene in open session when completion of closed session.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Nadowski?
Aye.
Appleby?
Aye.
I forgot. 442.